Hi, friends. Welcome to CoreLight's Spiritual Weather Report. It is April 12th, 2026. This is Brad, and I'm in South Africa, and I'm very happy to be with you today. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I look forward to these podcasts, these calls every month, and being in the field of love with you. We are living in surreal times. I'm sure you're feeling that. So we're in a passage, and we'll talk about that today. It is a time when what's been hidden is being revealed, and what's been wounded is being brought into the light, and what's been divided is being called back into unity. An extraordinary time. So we're going to talk a lot about all of that today. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome everybody who's new to CoreLight and also welcome to all of our old friends too. Whether you are listening live or in the future, it doesn't matter. We are all in the field of love that exists in the eternal present moment. So no matter what linear time you're tuning in, we're all here together. For those who are new, every month I tune in on what's happening in the collective consciousness, and I'm always shown a few key themes to talk about on these calls. And today we have three themes. The first one is midwifing a world beyond war. The second one is the power of truth to heal the world. The third one is disclosure, hidden truths emerging. So again, for anybody who's new, I start by offering a guided meditation, and then I'll speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. And we'll close the session with a brief guided meditation or a prayer, depending on what we have time for. If you need to leave before the call ends, you can always listen to the recording later on our free resources page at corelight.org. We do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube. So before we get started, I'd like to just mention a few little updates for you here. April 22nd, 10 days from now, it is the enlightenment anniversary of my beloved life partner, Leslie Temple Thurston. So we'll be sending an email out sometime soon in the next couple of weeks to announce that and to call for a global meditation. We always like to do what we call a rolling global meditation, which means at sunrise or sunset in your time zone, we invite you to meditate and join with us in the field of love. And this is in celebration of Leslie's enlightenment anniversary and just honoring her and thanking her for all that she's given us, so much love and wisdom over so many decades. But also, it's for peace, it's for world peace. We're in a time where that's really needed. So it will be dedicated to that. So I invite you to join us. Be on the lookout, please, for that announcement coming out. Another update is the retreats in South Africa that I'm offering. The one for our Brazilian group, April 20th through May 3rd, is full, but there are still a couple of spaces remaining, only two for the retreat. It's May 14th to 27th for English speakers. So coming up very soon. They are here at the Blyde River Canyon, which is the third largest canyon in the world, one of the most beautiful and spiritually powerful places on earth. So you can check out our website if you want to learn more about those retreats. Just go to corelight.org and check out the events page. We also have an online enlightenment studies section of our website at corelight.org. So if you go there, you can just scroll down and you'll see our courses. They are evergreen, which means you can start them at any time and go at your own pace. The online courses are very powerful. They're sort of the core of what we offer along with our books. They're all audio and video based courses, and they include recordings of Zoom calls with me. Let's see. Lastly, I'm going to be offering in-person events in the United States later this year. So if you'd like me to come to your area, please reach out. Let me know if you'd like that, what you might have in mind, and we can talk about the possibilities. You can reach me at brad@corelight.org. Without further ado, let's have our guided meditation. So now I invite you to get comfortable, close your eyes, take a few long, slow, deep breaths, and relax. Breathing in all the light and the life force that surrounds you. And breathing out any tension in the body. Breathing in peace. Breathing out the shadow. Breathing in the present moment. And breathing out any worries about the past or the future. Just being right here, right now. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just deeply relaxing and letting go. As you continue to breathe, I invite you to put your awareness in your heart center. Just feel your heart center, right in the center of your chest. Our heart center is the midpoint between heaven and earth, between celestial realms and the terrestrial realms. So I invite you to just feel that place inside you. Sometimes it's helpful to tap the center of your chest. If you're watching, you can see that I'm tapping right in the center of the chest, and that helps you to feel where your heart center is. As you breathe, just feel the love that sits there. Breathe in the love that sits in your heart center, and breathe out any tension in your body. In fact, I invite you to do a scan of your body from head to toes and fingertips, and just consciously relax all the muscles where you might be holding on to tension. Starting with the scalp, and letting your awareness drift down through your body, very gently like a leaf falling from a tree. Just letting go of any tension that you might find, especially around the eyes. We hold a lot of tension around the eyes, back of the tongue. That's a place where we also hold on to quite a bit of tension. And if you can successfully release the tension on the back of the tongue, there's a whole region of the body that relaxes. You just feel yourself letting go, relaxing your shoulders, your arms, your hands, all the way down to your fingertips. Relaxing your chest and your back and your whole torso, all the way down to the abdomen and the solar plexus. Relaxing your legs, all the way down to the ankles, feet, and toes. Just feeling a sense of deep peace gently flowing through your body. Ah. Let's return to the center of the chest, to the heart center, and feel that center opening like a flower out in front of your chest, petal by petal, unfurling. What color is the flower? What does it look like? Is it beautiful golden white light? Or maybe green? invite you to feel this place as the midpoint between heaven and earth. Your body is the center point between the heavens and the earth. This physical body that we get to wear for a few years is infused with spirit, and yet it's made of the earth. I now invite you to open your crown chakra, which sits on the top of the head like a king or a queen would wear, and feel it unfurling petal by petal. They call it the 1,000-petaled lotus. So just feel that. If you can't feel it, it's okay. Just visualize. As you open your crown, feel beautiful golden white light pouring down into you like rain from above. Feel this celestial energy as coming from divine source. Highest energy of the source, filling you up. This beautiful golden white light, infusing your body, feeling every single cell soaking up this light, like lots of miniature sponges in the body, soaking up the light. Trillions of cells, like little sponges, soaking up this beautiful divine light. And as you fill up from above, I also invite you to open your root at the base of the spine and drop your grounding cord down into the earth, connecting with the core of the earth and drawing that earth energy up into the body through the soles of the feet, through the grounding cord, to the root, all the way up the body. So you're literally filling up from beneath with earth energy and from above, celestial energy. And feel how the body is suspended between heaven and earth, just completely relaxed. Light as a feather. Free. Filling up with light and love. And as you return to your heart center, I invite you to open that heart center, and let's all take a moment now to send our love out to planet Earth, especially to all the places that are affected by war. And we send blessings. We ask for light and blessings to be sent to these places and all who are affected by war. We send love and light and healing energy. Let's also send our love out to all beings on planet Earth, humans, non-humans, the whole of the natural world, all who suffer for any reason. Take a moment now if you'd like to name somebody silently, or an area, or a species, a species. Just sending love and light out. May all of these beings be blessed, be held in the light. May the spirit that moves in all things lift them up, hold them in love. Before we start our call, I'm going to say a little invocation and prayer. We call on the divine light, Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the self that we all are, all of our highest spiritual guides and teachers. We invite you into this sacred circle. Please wrap us up in a cocoon of golden white light and love and healing energy. Guide our conversation today into the highest love and the highest wisdom. May we go out into the world shining our light and fulfilling our soul's highest purpose on earth. Shining our light brightly. We give thanks for this opportunity to gather today. Thanks for the opportunity to be incarnate in a human body on planet Earth at this most extraordinary time, the turning of the ages, as midwives of the new paradigm of the heart that is birthing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alalaho. And then when you feel ready, I invite you to slowly bring your awareness back into the room and into your body. Slowly begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. When you feel ready, open your eyes. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in today. Whether you're live in person today or listening in the future, it doesn't matter. As I said, we're all in the eternal present moment and we're all in the field of love. So welcome. I have a few quotes to start our day with, as always. The first one is, love and truth are the most powerful forces in the universe. And that's my beloved Leslie Temple Thurston, my life partner, who said that. I have three quotes by Nelson Mandela. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Forgiveness liberates the soul. It removes fear. That's why it's such a powerful weapon. And the last one, reconciliation does not mean forgetting or trying to bury the pain of conflict, but instead it means working together to correct the legacy of past injustice. And one final quote. The best way to illuminate the darkness is to make light of it. That is Swami Beyondananda, the comedian. Humor, humor being all important. So our first topic for today is midwifing a world beyond war. I wonder if you're feeling what I've been feeling. Like I said, it is a passage that we're in. These are surreal times. We are not in a rational or predictable time. It is surreal. And I feel like I use that word surreal throughout the day, every day. So the meaning of surreal, sur is French or it's Latin. It means beyond or on top of. So it's literally beyond reality. It's the blending of fact and fiction, reality and fantasy. So it's the bizarre, it's the irrational, surreal. And that, doesn't it seem like I've heard from quite a few of you. I know it's true for many of you, but it truly is a surreal time. Um, Many of the energies that I spoke about last month are still in play. It's still a very similar time. This passage, as I'm calling it, that we're in, is a period of time. It's not, things aren't happening overnight. So I thought what I would do today is offer just a little recap of last month and expand on it a little bit. So some of this will be a reminder for some of you if you heard last month's podcast. I hope you don't mind. It's always good to have a reminder, I think. Um, but many people are feeling a sense of shock and shattering and feeling the horror of these times, horrified, let's say. There is a new level of disillusionment in the collective. There's a collective sense of betrayal. The things that happened in, I guess it was February, with the dumping of so many millions of Epstein files, and then also with the madness of war. If you remember, March 1st was the last spiritual weather report, and that was the day that we learned about war beginning with Iran. And there had been a war before that as well, just a few weeks before with Venezuela. So um, madness, the madness of war, and both of those things, the Epstein files being dumped and the madness of war, they're really the same thing. It feels like it's really about the law of the jungle prevailing right now. And I guess that means that you do whatever you want if you can get away with it. So on last month's podcast, we did a square on the law of the jungle versus the rule of law. If you're new to this, if you didn't hear last month, if you don't know what a square is, it's something, it's a little practice, a journaling practice that Leslie and I describe in our book, The Marriage of Spirit. And it's a very powerful tool for transformation. So I won't go into it today. If you're interested in that, you could. The square was a powerful one. It was on the law of the jungle versus the rule of law last month. So I invite you to go check that out if you haven't heard it. But I guess also, even with all that shadow that's coming up that I'm describing, this passage of shadow, let's call it, there's also enormous hope, enormous inspiration at the same time for many people. Not everybody's feeling that, but many, many people are. And that's because we see that this is not just an ending, but it's also a new beginning. I think one of the most important things to remember about all of this is that um, the system of separation or the system of patriarchy, whatever you like to call it, is playing itself out to its logical conclusion, and it is coming to an end. And so war is a huge part of that. I think what I'd like to do, just in case there are some people who might be newer to Corelight, to what we like to talk about on these calls very often, I thought I would just share a little bit about the system of separation, the system of patriarchy. It's been about 6,000 years, mostly of wars. One of the hallmarks of this system is war. Um, the system of separation or the system of patriarchy is a predominance of left brain thinking. That's the linear, logical mind, so-called. Doesn't seem very logical what's happening right now, but okay. It's essentially mind oriented. It's seeing everything in parts. Doesn't see the big picture. It sees the small parts. It sees the separations. And so this is what is also traditionally associated with the yang or the masculine side. Not men per se. I'm not describing men and women. We have to be careful with how we use these words because I certainly don't want to offend anybody. I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying that the yang energy is traditionally associated with the masculine, and that is the left brain. If you look at mammals in general, male mammals are territorial. It's part of their instinct. Because I live part of the year here in Africa, I get to see this frequently played out. I get to see the territorial male patrolling the territory. And again, no, I never judge. This is not judging men or women, masculine or feminine, the patriarchy. There's no judgment in this. There are pros and cons to everything. And so we're not talking about good and bad today. We're not talking about a political party or a country or a leader. We never do that. Um, we always look at things from the place of the objective observer, which we call the witness, with as much neutrality as possible. So we're observing objectively here. I think one of the most important things we can also talk about is since we're going to talk just a little bit about patriarchy. Um, let's also talk a little bit about the previous era before that. It was a period of about 10,000 years. It was known as the Neolithic era. Um, it was the era of right brain predominance, which is holistic, seeing the big picture. It's feminine oriented or yin oriented. It was a time of goddess worship. It was the time of the power of the priestesses, where society revered Mother Earth. It was very much about the reverence of fertility and fecundity. Um, so there's a lot of archaeological and anthropological evidence to show that it was mostly a peaceful time. There was no evidence of major wars happening at that time, and at least not like we see today. Um, I also want to just say up front that sometimes when we say the previous era was about the feminine, there's an assumption that a lot of people make that then it means it's the opposite of patriarchy, which means that women would dominate men, since in the patriarchy, the masculine has dominated the feminine. Or let's say the reverse assumption would be that the feminine dominates the masculine, not women dominating men. I have to be careful how we talk about these things. So there's not a lot of evidence to show that it was that it was the opposite. The evidence shows that it was more of a balance between masculine and feminine, a balance of masculine and feminine principles. It's true that women held power in that time, like we were talking about. It's mostly uh, spiritual power. It's the power of the priestess. That was how women held power, was as the priestess. And men also held power. Was their power was held more with infrastructure, building, governing, that sort of thing. Uh, there are a number of books on this subject. My knowledge or what I'm drawing from today is some books that I've read, but also my own intuition. And the books, if you're interested in this subject, the two books I recommend the most are The Chalice and the Blade by Rian Eisler. And the second book is called The Fall, The Insanity of the Ego in Human History and the Dawning of a New Era by Steve Taylor. Those books are they will definitely shift your mindset. If you haven't read them yet, I highly recommend them. Uh, so again, not talking about good and bad, not saying the previous era was good and this one is bad, nothing like that. Everything has its pros and cons, but some evidence does show that there might have been an imbalance in that there was possibly some male sacrifice that would go on that in some kind of rituals. But again, I don't claim to be an expert, and there's no conclusive evidence about that as far as I know. But I guess I share this because I think it's helpful to see the bigger picture around the turning of the ages. As a species and as a soul group, we wanted that experience of both a feminine predominant and a masculine predominant age. And so now we're at the turning of another age where we're coming out of the age of patriarchy. Um, and I guess what we could say is that it has to play out. It has to play out to its logical conclusion so that we can get all the lessons, so that we can experience it completely in every way, uh, in all its glory, milk it for all it's worth. We're completing this evolutionary step. So we're in a planet right now of beer and guns and football and war. Like it or not, here we are. Um, I guess the amount of violence, especially around war and terrorism and genocide, they make it so hard to be alive right now if you're an empath. There's so much pain, so many people directly impacted, so much pain of anybody involved, so much pain associated with war and violence. Um, so I think one of the things that's important to remember is that what we could, since this is the system of separation or the age of separation, you could say that the forces of separation are very hard at work now, trying to hold on for dear life. And the goal for the forces of separation is war without end. Let me say that again. The goal of the forces of separation is war without end. So it's not, I don't believe that it's really about principles, about, you know, anything other than just having war without end. Um, I think the forces of separation want war because it generates chaos and fear and all the other emotions, lower vibratory emotions like anger, despair, sadness, hopelessness. So when we're in that kind of emotional state, we just we can't think rationally. We're much more easily dominated and manipulated and controlled. And so war brings up um, lots of primal instincts, let's say, things like tribalism, nationalism, um, territorial, things of a territorial nature. So in wartime, all kinds of crazy ideas arise, and mostly it's all out of fear. And I want to keep coming back to that. Fear is really the underlying component of war, the common denominator, let's say, of all these things. So um, during times like this, people even begin to advocate for crazy things like restricting free speech. I think most of us realize that in times of conflict, there needs to be more speech, not less of it. So this whole thing of curtailing speech is really not okay. So we need to be careful about having our free speech restricted. And the framers of the US Constitution, they made free speech the number one thing on the list because they knew that it was the most important thing. Of all the amendments in the Constitution, free speech is number one. It's the most important thing because without that, we're not free. And all kinds of other things, the dominoes begin to fall at that point. Yeah, so it's what sets the US Constitution apart from other countries. And again, it's coming back to the fact that it's all fear-based. So when we look at the big picture around the turning of the ages that's happening right now, we're moving from patriarchy or a system of separation into the new paradigm of the heart. It's literally, Leslie used to talk about the journey through the chakras, the eras being journey through the chakras. So the age of we could call it the Neolithic age or the matrifocal age, the focus on the feminine, focus on the mother. That age was pre-patriarchy. So say, I think it was about 10,000 years. Patriarchy began about 3000 BC, roughly. So you can do the math. And then patriarchy has been about 6,000 years. And here we are now, let's say 6,000. So that would be, it would have started 4,000 BC. Sorry, somewhere around there. It's all kind of broad brushstroke anyway. But now we're at this new turning of the ages that's happening as in our incarnation. And so during this time, I often ask when I talk with groups about this, I often ask a question, and I'm going to ask it of you. If you've been on these podcasts before, you know the question and you know the answer. The question is, what is the number one process, the number one knot in human consciousness that's being worked out on the planet right now? By virtually every individual. I don't know of any individual that is not working on this number one process. Can you think of what that would be? I'm going to give you a moment to think about it. So the number one process, the number one knot in human consciousness that everybody's working on right now is what I would call victim consciousness. You could call it victim tyrant consciousness if you like. But there are three. The victim is an archetype or a role that we play. It's a personality pattern. Um, there are three primary archetypes associated with victim consciousness. One is the victim. The other I mentioned, it's the tyrant or the perpetrator. And the third one is the savior or the rescuer. Victim, perpetrator, rescuer. Victim, tyrant, savior. Um, so war is the collective outpicturing of these three roles dancing. That's what they do. They dance with each other. War is the hallmark of the system of separation. So it's like I said, it's playing itself out right now. It's doing really well. 6,000 years of war, and here we are at the most absolutely insane outpicturing of this thing called war. So let's I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about victim, tyrant, savior, but we have to talk a little bit about it. Um, let's talk about what is war? What is war really about? So, as I said, it's always about fear, fear in some form, and it's always a sign of weakness. So, for example, if somebody goes to war to dominate and control, that would be about the fear of being dominated and controlled oneself. Like a bully is afraid of appearing weak, of being inferior, so he bullies. He dominates and controls. Another reason people go to war is for greed, wanting what another country has, and that would be the fear of not having enough. So it always comes back to fear in some way. Um, if just a moment, a brief moment of thought at all reveals pretty easily that war is always a dance of victims and tyrants. So I call it victim consciousness for short. It's really victim tyrant consciousness, but at the core of that dance between those two roles or archetypes is fear. Victim consciousness is primarily based in fear. And so there's so much to be said about it. And like I said, I really I don't want to devote too much time to it. If it's a subject that interests you, I offered an online course on the subject. It's called The New Paradigm of the Heart, Transcending Victim Tyrant Consciousness, and it's available at corelight.org. It includes a lot of home practices and guided meditations. It supports you in your journey of transcending victim tyrant consciousness and actually fear clearing as well, especially fear, a lot of fear clearing exercises. So, in any case, the paradigm of war cannot last. It will not last. It is going to take some more time to play out, but it is coming to an end. So, that is the hopeful side of what we're going through. And our job right now is to hold the light during a time of great change and challenge. So, as the shadow of humanity is revealed, we get to practice all of our spiritual practices, but especially the practice that at Corelight we like to call witnessing. If you listen to these calls, you hear me talk about it almost every month. And witnessing is really about remembering who we truly are. It's the objective observer, and that's the part of us that remembers that we are pure love, pure awareness, pure consciousness. We are not our thoughts. We're not our emotions. They are passing through us. So we are the midwives. We're the midwives and the healers, and we're helping to usher in this new paradigm of the heart. It's the movement, as I was talking about before, the movement through the chakras. Sorry, I forgot to complete that part. Forgive me. Um, the, the Neolithic era was associated with root chakra. The matrifocal period, the period of goddess worship, is associated with second chakra. And excuse me, I got that slightly wrong. It's the Stone Age before the Neolithic that's associated with root. The Neolithic is the era of the matrifocal time, the goddess worshiping time, and that's the second chakra. It's the chakra that is associated with the womb of the feminine, of course. And then patriarchy is third chakra. It's power, the learning lessons about power. Some would say learning lessons about the abuse of power. And that's what the third chakra, the solar plexus, is associated with. And so now we're moving, as we move up the chakras, we're moving into the heart, the new paradigm of the heart. And that jump from third chakra to the heart is on an individual's journey of awakening. That is the most challenging, let's say. It's the most important and the most challenging passage. And it's through what we call, some people in Sanskrit, it's called the knot of Vishnu, but we call it Heaven's Gate. That's what Leslie's spiritual guides called it, is Heaven's Gate. It's literally a knot between the two chakras, between the third and the fourth, the solar plexus and the heart. It's a knot that is associated with forgiveness. To open that knot is to work on forgiveness and moving into the heart. So I speak about that because it feels to me important that we hold that passage. In short, if you want a little aphorism to describe that movement from third to fourth chakra, it is moving from the love of power into the power of love. I always find that helpful to think about that. So our job during this time, the turning of the age, is represented by that Heaven's Gate, by that passage between third and fourth. So that's where we all are now on our individual journeys, is opening that Heaven's Gate, opening that knot, working on our forgiveness, our unconditional love. And so our job now, as we do this, is to hold the light during this time of challenge and to find our hearts. So as humanity's shadow is revealed, we get to practice all of our spiritual practices, especially witnessing and remembering who we truly are. And as I said, we're the midwives, we're the healers, and we are helping to usher in this new paradigm. So, as I always like to say, we knew before we incarnated that this was not going to be an easy time. We knew this was going to be challenging, but we knew that we had the strength and the courage and that we were up for this. So we are in this together. And I guess I would say also, to add to that, is it takes so much courage to be incarnate as a human. And that's just in general, that's true, but especially at this time of so much change. And so how do we do this? How do we walk this path in physical bodies at this time when it's so challenging? Um, the levels of deception and distortion and manipulation that we're going through, they make it so hard to know the truth and to navigate our way forward. So how do we do this? How do we find the discernment? How do we find the wisdom at a time like this when it's almost impossible to even know what's true? And I think that's partly why we gather in gatherings like this on this kind of podcast and this kind of situation, is because we have to rely on spirit. We have to rely on spirit for guidance. So I guess I'm wondering, how is your spiritual practice going? How is your prayer practice going? How's your discernment practice going? How's your witnessing practice going? Uh, how's your practice of talking to your spiritual guides? I've been reminded lately, our spiritual guides are listening to us all the time, and they're so happy to help us. All we have to do is ask, but sometimes we forget to ask them for help. So I'm reminding everybody right now, it's a great time to have conversations with your spiritual guides and ask them for help. They're really ready. They really want to help us. Um, and also when I say spiritual guidance, I also mean the natural world. So the rest of the natural world is our teacher too. We can receive tremendous guidance from non-human animals, from plants, from the rivers and the forests and the mountains, and so forth. I think of a couple of recent examples for me. I've been running into so many praying mantises lately. I don't know why, but there's an abundance of them here where I live right now. They're coming out at this time, end of summer, beginning of fall in the southern hemisphere, and I'm amazed at how friendly they are, how intelligent they are, how loving they are. And how courageous they are to, they're so small and yet they'll climb right on you and provide, and they look at you with such intelligence and so much love. It's such a gift to receive their love, to receive their transmission of purity and I don't know how to describe it, care, and their intelligence from such a little tiny being. But it's so obvious if you're with a praying mantis. That the spirit that moves in all things, it moves through us and it moves definitely, you can see it moving through them with their wisdom and intelligence. The other creature that's here with me, the non-human being that is here with me, is a giant plated lizard. He lives under a box on my deck, a wooden box where we keep outdoor supplies, and or she. And a few babies. And I've become such good friends. This being is so intelligent and so loving. And I'll be sitting outside at the table working on my laptop, and suddenly I'll feel something and I'll look over, and there she is looking at me, sending a message. Will you give me some tomatoes? So I've started feeding little I've been feeding for a while little blueberries or tomatoes, small pieces of tomato or um, small pieces of strawberry, and we've become so close. So I receive so much love and joy from this being, and it's guidance. It's actually guidance. I do receive guidance from these beings, and it's as though one of the big reminders for me is to stop, just to stop working, to stop being busy, and to remember joy, to remember that that's why we're here, is to play and experience joy amidst the madness, amidst the changes, amidst the busyness. Um, just stop and be with what is, be with the amazing life forms that surround us. I'm very blessed to be living amidst nature here, and I have so many interactions with the natural world. So anyway, I share that with you. I hope it's helpful to you. I hope that you get some of that as well. I would imagine many of you do. So it's a challenging time, but it's also an absolutely extraordinary time. I know I speak about that a lot, but I think it's really important to remember that lots of life forms, not just the life forms that I've just described, in the natural world, but I'm talking about beings from all over the cosmos are here watching what's going on planet Earth. ETs, I'm talking about. Lots of beings and interdimensional beings, not just ETs, but angels, interdimensional beings, all kinds of beings have their attention on Earth. We are considered the show of the millennia. This movement from third to fourth, from solar plexus to heart, from love of power to the power of love. This is the biggest leap in consciousness that any species can make on any planet. And we are pioneering something here. So all attention is on us. Like, it's like a soap opera. What is going to happen next on planet Earth? What are they going to do now? Look at what's happening. Um, it's so much about developing our hearts, um, opening to our emotions, opening to love, And that's how we do it. That's how we move into the new paradigm of the heart, is witnessing those emotions passing through us, keeping our hearts open, remembering who we are, realizing, making real the intelligence of the human heart, choosing those qualities of the heart: love, compassion, empathy, kindness, forgiveness, generosity, gratitude, all these wonderful qualities of the heart. We have a whole list of those states. It's a long list of heart states. We call them ascended balance states. It's in our book, The Marriage of Spirit, that I talked about before. We have a little practice called triangles. And we made a list of these heart states because when you do a triangle in your journal, it helps you move into your heart. So we made a list of all these words, which I 30 years ago, I had it plastered all over my house and my office and my car. I was always praying, asking to be living in those states. Um, so I invite you to give that a try if you like. I know many of you who have been doing this work for a long time, the marriage of spirit work that we teach. You already know about this, and I'm sure you're well on your way to living in the heart permanently, which is entirely possible, by the way. If you're new, that's one of the main things we like to teach, is how to open the heart permanently. You know, in the third dimensional or third chakra paradigm, whatever you want to call it, the heart opens and closes like a valve with negative and positive stimuli from the outside world. And yet, it is possible to live here in the heart with it permanently open, no matter what's happening in the outside. And that's the journey. That's the journey I'm talking about, this opening of Heaven's Gate. So I invite everybody who's listening to open to that potential, which we all have. That's where we're all headed if we choose to take that journey. Okay, I think we're complete. To conclude, I just think it's really important to remember that it's such an honor and a blessing to be incarnate as a human on planet Earth right now. You know, it takes so much courage. And yet here we are. Like, we heard the call, we chose, we raised our hand, we said, we'll do it. We're going to be the midwives. We'll we'll show up to midwife the heart, the opening of the heart, the new paradigm of the heart, a world beyond war. So I bow to you. Thank you, my soul group, our soul group, doing our courageous work. The next theme: the power of truth to heal the world. April 27th, coming up in a couple of weeks from today, is the 32nd anniversary of South Africa's first democratic election. It was in 1994. And so, always at this time of year, I'm reminded of one of the most powerful spiritual experiences of my life, which I'd like to share with you because it ties directly into our themes for today, and because I hope it's helpful. I shared it last year. I do share it from time to time, and so this will be a reminder for some of you. I apologize. I hope you don't mind. It really is such a powerful story of what South Africa went through to get to this place of having free and fair elections. So I think it's an important story for our times. So please bear with me if you've heard it before, but I hope it's a good reminder. Um, so the story I want to share with you, my first time to come to South Africa, like I said, was for the election of Mandela in 1994. It was one of the most profound spiritual experiences of my life, and also not just for me, but for my life partner, Leslie. For those of you who don't know Leslie, she is South African by birth. I met her in the United States in the early 1990s. We've been life partners since then, so over 30 years. When we heard that Mandela was likely to get elected, we knew we had to go. Leslie had emigrated in the 1970s. She left the country to go to the US because it was just too unbearable. She had tried very hard, she and her husband at the time had tried very hard to affect change. and it was not really possible for them to do much. And they were also being harassed by what was called the special branch. It's sort of like the KGB in Russia was the secret police, sort of. Um, so Leslie told me when we were together in Los Angeles, she told me that every South African of her generation, those who lived during the apartheid years, never in their wildest dreams imagined that that would happen in their lifetimes, that there'd be a free and fair election where everybody got to vote. Because during the age of apartheid, it was only white people could vote. Non-whites could not vote. So, for anybody who might not know what apartheid was, apartheid is a Dutch-derived word that means separation. And you could say apartheid was arguably the most all-encompassing, um, meticulously engineered, legalized form of racism ever to exist on planet Earth. And it started when Leslie was born, 1946, and it lasted about 50 years. Well, it started a little bit before she was born, I think, and it lasted approximately 50 years, let's say. Uh, it, it it ended in the early 90s, but for all intents and purposes, it ended in 94 when Mandela was elected. Um, so what happened to me when we were there in 1994, when Leslie and I went from the US to South Africa, was my first time there. It was her first time back in a long time. And we went and stayed with her parents in Johannesburg. And I had an experience of unity consciousness. It was ongoing, long lasting. It went on and on and on. There was this long period of the election. It didn't happen in a day. They thought it was going to be a day, but it took days and days because so many people queued up to vote. The queues were around the blocks. And I guess, looking back on it, I can name what happened. I'm not sure I could name it in the moment, but what I know to be true was that most people in the country were thinking the same thoughts: freedom, equality, peace, justice. Mandela represented forgiveness of the oppressor. Makes me cry to talk about this. I hope I can get through this. Um, So there was a sense, I really, words fail. I'm going to try to describe this, but all I can say is that there was this sense of bliss and ecstasy and joy. And literally, I would be walking around doing things in town in Johannesburg and feeling this sense of elation. And it was this odd sense of expansion and connection to people. And everybody was smiling. And I remember kind of looking at people and wondering, I wonder if they're feeling what I'm feeling. And days passed with this. And I finally, a stranger on the street, and I smiled at her and I said, "Are you feeling what I'm feeling?" And she smiled and said, "Yes. What is this?" And it's unity consciousness. Everybody thinking the same thought, and they're very high thoughts, they're heart qualities, those states I'm describing. Very powerful emotions, very powerful states of consciousness. And so I guess what I saw was that that is what awaits our entire world one day. When enough people make the shift, and it doesn't require a majority, but when enough people make that shift into heart-centered states, we will experience unity consciousness on this planet. I suppose, I, I guess I'm making an assumption that everybody can choose that if they want. I suppose people could deny it if they wanted to, but all I know is that I saw, my experience was that most people were in it. And it was so ecstatic and so inspiring and hopeful and creative, like life force just flowing through the body. There was so much, a sense of so much potential in the air. Uh, that I just imagined, like, what if the whole world's in that state? I mean, that's like, a planet of heart-centeredness. I got an experience of it then, and it was truly extraordinary. And again, beyond words. I'm not, words fall short. So, but I hope you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. Leslie's experience was similar, but she had a further experience. Her mystical experience that she had was on the inauguration day. It was on May 10th, 1994, when Mandela was inaugurated. And she had this profound mystical experience during that ceremony. She was meditating while I watched it on television with her parents. And she told me later that when the old flag was lowered and the new flag was raised, she said her guides showed her that it was sort of like jumper cables coming down from the heavens, literally like from the heavens, being attached to the country of South Africa and igniting the country into a new phase of its evolution, like jump starting a car, like a massive boost of energy. And so what we became aware of shortly thereafter was that the new South Africa created a new constitution, and it's one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. It sets a very high bar for the country. It enshrines many different types of rights based on things like religion and race and gender and sexual orientation, disabilities, and so forth. But I think what's important to name here is that a country doesn't just take an instant quantum leap into embodying, the goal that it sets in its constitution. It's sort of like an individual's journey of evolution. They're parallel because a country is just a group of individuals. So of course they're parallel. So for example, an individual might set an intention of some kind like to know love or to know wisdom in life, and that takes time. It's a journey. So in the case of a country, the Constitution is the intention, and then it takes time to get there. So we all know, just because we set a goal, we don't necessarily achieve it overnight. That's not normal. We have to make that journey. The path involves clearing away all the shadow aspects that stand in the way of fulfilling that goal, and that's the key. We're clearing away the shadow to achieve the goal. So, the metaphysical principle behind that is that we can only go as high as we're willing to go low. I want to say that again. Metaphysical principle, it's a very important one, is that we can only go as high as we're willing to go low. So we kind of have to clean out the basement before we can ascend to the heights. Uh, And it's similar for a country with its constitution. So South Africa is a great example of a collective that's been on a journey of clearing shadow so that it can live up to the goal of a very progressive constitution. Um, there's still a huge amount of shadow that South Africa is working through, like every country. I don't think there's any country in the world that is not experiencing its shadow right now. There's no place where you can go on earth where the shadow is not being revealed so that it can be cleared. It's just every country has its own flavor of shadow, different flavor in each country. Um, because as a global collective, we've all agreed that it's time to birth this new paradigm of the heart, as we've been talking about today. So all that shadow that's coming up is this, shining a light on heaven's gate, on this knot between the chakras. So I think South Africa has a good head start, has made a lot of progress, because in the 90s, after the election of Nelson Mandela, it created something called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so that's kind of the main thing I want to talk to you about today because it ties into this theme of the power of truth to change the world. So for anybody who doesn't know about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, um, it was a radical experiment in restorative justice. The principle behind it was that for the nation to heal, there was going to be a need um, to have the full exposure of atrocities that were committed, the shining a light on the shadow, if you will. So for example, if a perpetrator provided an honest confession of what they did, and if they expressed remorse, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission provided amnesty instead of what would normally be the traditional legal form of punishment. Uh, so this idea is incredibly powerful that, a deeply fractured society can begin to bridge its divide through the challenging collective work of truth telling and space holding, and empathy, basically. Uh, Radical idea. So even though the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was difficult and painful, there were some extraordinary instances of success with the reconciliation. And there's one story in particular that's frequently told. It's a profound story that highlights the ability of forgiveness to heal trauma. And it shows how the act of confronting difficult truths can be the first step towards the genuine restoration for healing. So I found the story. I'm going to read it to you. There are many different authors who've written this story, and the one that I'm going to read to you today is from a website called hopecenter.ie. So here's what the author writes. I read this in a book by Jeff Lucas the other day, and it really blessed and challenged me. The scene is South Africa during the Truth and Reconciliation process. It is a courtroom filled with people, the accusers and the accused. A frail black, and this is a quote from the book, I guess. A frail black woman stands slowly to her feet. She is something over 70 years of age. Facing her from across the room are several white security police officers, one of whom, Mr. Funderbrook, has just been tried and found implicated in the murders of both the woman's son and her husband some years before. It was indeed Mr. Funderbrook, it has now been established, who had come to the woman's home a number of years back, taken her son, shot him at point-blank range, and then burned the young man's body on a fire while he and his officers partied nearby. Several years later, Mr. Funderbrook and his cohorts had returned to take away her husband as well. For many months, she heard nothing of his whereabouts. Then, almost 2 years after her husband's disappearance, Mr. Funderbrook came back to fetch the woman herself. How vividly she remembers that evening, going down to a place near a river where she was shown her husband bound and beaten, but still strong in spirit, lying on a pile of wood. The last words she heard from his lips as the officers poured petrol over his body and set him aflame were, "Father, forgive them." And now the woman stands in the courtroom and listens to the confessions offered by Mr. Funderbrook. A member of South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission turns to her and asks, "So what do you want? How should justice be done to this man who has so brutally destroyed your family?" "I want three things," begins the old woman calmly but confidently. "I want first to be taken to the place where my husband's body was burned so that I can gather up the dust and give his remains a decent burial." She pauses and then continues. "My husband and son were my only family. I want secondly, therefore, for Mr. Funderbrook to become my son." I would like for him to come twice a month to the ghetto and spend a day with me so that I can pour out on him whatever love I still have remaining within me. And finally, she says, I want a third thing. I would like Mr. Funderbrook to know that I offer him my forgiveness because Jesus Christ died to forgive. This was also the wish of my husband. And so I would kindly ask someone to come to my side and lead me across the courtroom so that I can take Mr. Funderbrook in my arms, embrace him, and let him know that he is truly forgiven. As the court assistant came to lead the elderly woman across the room, Mr. Funderbrook, overwhelmed by what he had just heard, faints. And as he does, those in the courtroom, family, friends, neighbors, all victims of decades of oppression and injustice begin to sing softly but assuredly, Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Ah, that's the end. I always uh, get emotional when I try to read that story. I I think the whole world is going to need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission one day for us to really move into the new paradigm of the heart. Um, there's so much trauma on our planet, you know. Apartheid is one example of many, many, many. And South Africa set a tremendous example for us. The healing begins with truth. And ultimately, forgiveness is the key to moving into the heart. Forgiveness and unconditional love. Those two things are so similar. And this woman in the story, she demonstrated them so beautifully, love and unconditional love and forgiveness. And so that's why I chose that quote by Leslie today. Love and truth are the most powerful forces in the universe. So for a couple of years, South Africa had this Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which did such a great job of modeling for the rest of the world for how to move into the heart, into the new paradigm of the heart. But then it stopped. And I remember when Leslie and I heard about it, we were just so deeply disappointed. We wished it could have gone on a lot longer. Um, it needed to continue, but I think it was extraordinary and a total miracle that it even happened at all. So even to have a couple of years of it uh, had a huge effect, enormous effect. I don't know that people realize what a profound effect it did have, but I think it was just a little hard, too hard for a lot of people, as you can imagine. So I think let's close on that topic. And let's move to our third topic for today. The third theme is disclosure, hidden truths emerging. So I haven't spoken much about disclosure on the spiritual weather reports, but I really feel like I should because it's such an important part of what's happening in the world right now, and it's an integral part of this birth of the new paradigm of the heart. I did speak a little about this a couple of months ago in the February Spiritual Weather Report. So if you want to know a little bit more, you could listen to the February Spiritual Weather Report. If you don't know what disclosure is, it is a movement. It's a movement towards transparency about our not being alone in the universe. So it's a shift in collective consciousness that's happening, and it's about moving towards the understanding that we are part of a cosmic family. There are some very courageous whistleblowers and dedicated researchers who are revealing some hidden truths that have been kept from the public for many decades, apparently. And ultimately, disclosure is about reclaiming our sovereignty and our right to know the truth. It's also about, it's a double-edged sword. It's also about accepting the responsibility of knowing the truth. That's a big one. Um, so it's about being able to look up at the sky and, recognize that our shared human story is so much bigger, so much more interconnected, and so much more extraordinary than we were ever encouraged to believe it was. Um, I think what's happening right now in the world is that we're witnessing something extraordinary, uh, but it's not new. It's the lifting of a veil on something that's been around for a very, very long time. And the real story isn't even what's being revealed. It's really more about um, how we meet this. How do we meet this? So I wonder if you're tracking any of this, what's happening. It's hard to find stuff in the mainstream news about it. You kind of have to dig a little bit around the whole UFO, UAP phenomenon. Um, but in case you're not tracking it, there are a couple of things that I learned in this past month that I thought I should share with you today. They seem very important to me. Um, One thing is that there have been a dozen deaths and mysterious disappearances of aerospace related researchers over the last 18 months, including physicists, including military commanders, uh, including several people who hold very sensitive top secret information. So the whole thing is very mysterious. It's unusual. I haven't heard any more news about this, about the mysteriousness of it, about why it's happening, what it might be. And as far as I know, nobody has any answers about whatever this disturbing situation is. The second thing to share with you that's in the news is that there's increasing public acknowledgement of the UFO slash UAP reality. And there are journalists and even some members of Congress, the United States Congress, who are coming out of the closet and speaking about the subject openly. This is new. So one in particular, I want to read this one to you. His name is Representative Tim Burchett, and he recently spoke about the gap between what the Congress knows and what the public have been told. And he said, apparently he's been shown a lot. And he said, if people saw what I've seen, it would keep you up at night. And then he added, and I'm not suicidal. So you can you can extrapolate why he might have said that. But in any case, this is not random. It feels like there's pressure building towards some sort of wider recognition of whatever this is. Um, I share that with you as the like a physical unfolding of what's happening in the world of illusion, in the material world. Um, and I think it's important to come back to the bigger picture to remember disclosure isn't something new happening. It's something hidden that's becoming visible. The presence of non-human intelligence has been observed and recorded, and it's been quietly studied for a very long time. What's changing right now is what is allowed into public awareness. So there are strong indications that um, interactions between civilizations is is structured, it's intentional, it's directed by benevolent beings. It's not random, it's not chaotic, and humanity is waking up to its place. within a much larger organized field of intelligence. So I would say disclosure is a catalyst for human evolution. It's going to force us to expand our sense of reality and also expand our psyche, but stabilize our psyche as well. So as this veil lifts, it's going to be a choice between uh, contracting into fear or denial versus expanding into something much more profound, into what we could call a sovereign state of being. So spiritually, I think it's going to be about a fundamental shift in human consciousness where we move beyond religion, beyond spiritual belief systems, and towards something much more direct and experiential. It's going to be a move towards an experience of our own inner divinity and how the spirit that moves within us is the spirit that moves within all things in the whole of the natural world. So we're going to be awakening more and more to this. So as a result, I think capacities like telepathy and psychic ability and things like that, things that were previously dismissed as fringe, I think they're going to become essential tools for navigating in our world. In fact, that's already happening. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. You look at things like the popularity of the telepathy tapes, the popularity of interspecies communication. I think of the work of my friend and colleague Anna Breitenbach. Her movie, The Animal Communicator, had over 7 million views on YouTube. Um, Anna and I teach an online course called For the Love of Animals, and it's a very popular course. We have a lot of people signing up for that course all the time. Um, so I'm saying this because I feel like this is going to become mainstream, much more mainstream, and I think the boundary between that kind of phenomena and consciousness and science is going to be dissolving. It's already rapidly dissolving. I just think it's going to continue to. I want to mention here there's a friend of mine who's doing some amazing work, some pioneering work in this field of bridging science and consciousness. And her name is Helane Wabe. Some of you know her. She's been on the podcast before a long time ago, but she's the director of research for the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I wonder if you've heard of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, or IONS for the acronym. It was founded by the astronaut Edgar Mitchell. He was the sixth person to walk on the moon. He was a scientist, and he had a spiritual experience in space, an extraordinary spiritual experience, an awakening, if you will. And when he returned to Earth, he dedicated his life to understanding what happened to him in space. So he founded this Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, which is a nonprofit that scientifically studies consciousness and profound human experiences. So things like psychic phenomena, spirituality, channeling, all kinds of things. I'm pretty sure there's really nothing that's off limits, but it's fascinating, absolutely cutting edge, fascinating research happening at IONS. And I tell you this because I'm planning to have Helani on the show, on the podcast. She's agreed to be a guest speaker sometime soon. And there's so much amazing stuff that she's shared with me. And I thought it would be helpful to you, as we all midwife this new paradigm together. I really can't wait to share some of it with you by inviting Helani to be on the podcast with me. So that'll be coming up. Stay tuned for that. But meanwhile, let's wrap up this topic um, to close. I think the most important thing for us to remember as disclosure unfolds is about maintaining our own high consciousness, maintaining that state of consciousness, staying grounded, staying out of fear, uh, using our discernment more and more as the narratives get presented to us, many of them being distorted or manipulative. So it's about developing those states of heart-centeredness that we talked about earlier and learning to keep the heart open as much as we possibly can. So really, as I look at disclosure, it's not even really about ETs or UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them. It's really about how we respond when our reality begins to expand beyond, let's say, comfortable boundaries or known boundaries. Um, it's about, I wrote three questions down here. I want to read them to you. Do we become more sovereign or become more suggestible? Do we become more grounded or become more reactive? Can we stay out of fear and instead remain in our hearts? So let's close by saying I feel like this comes back to the practice of witnessing, being in the objective observer and remembering who we truly are, remembering that we are not these bodies, we are not these experiences, we're not our emotions, we're not our states of mind. We are pure awareness, pure consciousness, and all of this is passing through us. Remembering who we truly are. Okay, I think we're complete for today with our talk, and let's go to the questions and the sharing. I want to thank everybody for all the questions and for the heartfelt sharing that you send me every month. I really appreciate hearing from everybody. If you're new, the way it works is that you can email questions or sharing in advance to courses@corelight.org. It's not possible for me to answer all the questions, but I do read them all and I do get to as many of them as I can. If your question doesn't get answered by me, an answer does always come from somewhere, um, another teacher or a book or maybe an insight in meditation or a dream or something. The first question is from Queenie. It's a two-part question about journaling spiritual experiences. Part one is, how do I identify a spiritual experience? Part two is, please give an example of an everyday experience that we might brush off as coincidence or minor, but would actually be a spiritual experience. So thank you, Queenie. That's a great question. Let's address part one first. How do I identify a spiritual experience? So the truth is there's nothing that's not a spiritual experience. Everything is a spiritual experience because our worldly life is our spiritual life. We incarnate on planet Earth. It's called schoolroom Earth. And we come here to learn lessons and have experiences, to live out our desires, to live out and be fulfilled and experience joy, learn how to transmute and transcend fear. All of these things are all spiritual experiences. So you can't go wrong. Nothing that's not a spiritual experience. But I guess I'll add to that. That being said, Leslie always used to talk about in all of her courses, she used to talk about her invitation to everybody, her suggestion to everybody was to keep two journals. One journal was for uplifting, inspiring spiritual experiences, and the other journal was for processing, which she called processing. And processing, it means um, working, we could call it egoic clearing work, or you could call it untying the knots in consciousness or clearing the shadow, whatever you want to call it. But it's the little practices that we teach in the Marriage of Spirit book, the polarities, triangles, and squares. Those are the primary ways that we at Corelight we like to do the processing of consciousness. So, and it's clearing work. So the reason for keeping two journals is that this allows you um, to go back and read those high quote unquote spiritual experiences when you want to. maybe when you're having a dark day. So you can take in that high energy that you stored in your words that you recorded on the page. So those experiences that you'd put in that journal would be, experiences of the light, mystical experiences in meditation, powerful experiences in nature, insights, wisdom, love, things that come through you that uplift you and inspire you and excite you. That's the one journal. So I wonder if that might be what you're referring to is that perhaps. So part two of your question is, let me go back and read it. Please give an example of an everyday experience that we might brush off as coincidence or minor, but would actually be a spiritual experience. Okay, so I wrote a chapter in my book called Living with Enlightenment is the book, and the chapter is called Synchronicity. And I wrote a whole chapter about this. If you haven't had a chance to read that, you might like it. I'll summarize it here. I don't want to take the time to tell the whole story, but I was very new to the spiritual path. And I remember so I didn't know about signs and synchronicities and spiritual guidance. I really hadn't thought much about that at all. I'd never heard teachings on that subject. Um, so I remembered within 3 days, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw on the clock the numbers 333. So when it happened the third time, I said to Leslie, like, what, this is too weird. What is this? Why is that happening, do you think? And she said, oh, that's your spiritual guides. They're giving you a message. It's up to you to try to discern what that message is. But when something happens like that, especially when it comes in threes, she said, that's when I pay attention is when things come in threes. So since it was 333 three times, I thought, okay, something's going on here. And she said, there's a movie you could watch that is very much about this. It's a wonderful movie called Field of Dreams. It's a 1980s movie or 90s movie. I can't remember. Um, I think late 80s um, with Kevin Costner in it. And it's just a fantastic movie. And she said, it's about this subject and you should watch it. And I said, "Oh my goodness, you're the third person in this week to tell me to watch that movie." And it had already been out for years. It wasn't like it was new. So I thought that's another sign. Three people telling me to watch that movie. So I went and I rented the movie. It was back in the day when you'd go to Blockbuster and you'd rent a videotape and you'd pop it in the VHS player. I watched the movie and it was so inspiring, just so wonderful. If you haven't seen Field of Dreams, I highly recommend it. And if you have, it's great to watch again and again. But it's all about signs and synchronicities. And at the end of the movie, I was so moved by it that I just let all the credits roll to the very end, and I let the tape play to the very end. And back in the day, if you remember, if you're of a certain age, you remember that when the tape would stop, it would eject itself and snow, black and white dots would come over the TV. And so just as the snow came across the TV and there's like a loud hiss that goes with it. Just as that happened, my alarm went off. But it was like 11, I think it was 11:11. It was 11:11. The alarm was going off at 11:11 and I had not set the alarm. And that was like spooky. And I thought, what the heck? And at the same time as the alarm going off, the doorbell rang and the phone rang. So three things, again, happening all at once. And I kind of hit the alarm. I stumbled over to the phone. I'm answering the phone. It's after 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to the front door to figure out who's ringing the doorbell. And the phone was a friend calling me about something. And I didn't know why they were calling so late at night. And I couldn't understand why somebody was knocking on the door so late at night or ringing the doorbell at least. And they wanted to tell me about some kind of accident that had happened up the road. Anyway, it was so bizarre that when the dust settled and when everything calmed down, I was like, I paid attention. I thought these are signs, this is not something to ignore. And I made a commitment that night before bed. I said, I'm going to live my life differently. I'm going to pay attention to signs and synchronicities, and I'm going to ask for spiritual guidance, and I'm going to be asked to be shown the meaning of the messages. And so the next morning I woke up, I was so excited to start a new day, a new life with a new mindset. I was in my 20s and early 20s, no, mid 20s. And anyway, I'm going to work. I'm in Los Angeles. It's a winter morning. It's a little chilly, not too bad. But I walk out and I notice on the doormat there's a dead bee. And I just step over and I keep walking to the car. And I got halfway to the car in the parking garage. And I thought, wait a minute, that's really weird that there's a dead bee. I've never seen bees here. It's a city. Why is there a bee in the middle of winter here? And so I thought, okay, there's something to this. I'm not just going to skip over it and ignore it as something that's minor. So I go back, I stand over the doorstep and I look down at this dead bee and I ask my spiritual guides, is this a message? Why am I noticing this? And the message that came in, just intuition, I don't know, it wasn't spoken words, it was just an inner knowing. It's a dead B. B stands for Brad. The old Brad is dead. It's a new Brad. It's a new life. So I made some meaning out of that. Uh, and again, I could go on and on, but that gives you one example of how um, ever since then, I've lived my life that way. And nowadays, I still see bees. Whenever I see a bee, I pay attention. Like, what am I thinking? What's happening around me? Is there a message here? What is the bee doing? Is it unusual? Like, what am I supposed to be paying attention to here? Uh, and so bees are messengers for me very often, especially dead bees. I notice those. Um, anyway, this is how I live every day now, is through signs and synchronicities and guidance. So I offer that to you in the hopes that that helps. Queenie, let me know, write back to me, let me know if that's helpful, if I answered your question, or if there's something more you want to know. But I would say, you know, pay attention to what seems like an everyday quote unquote experience. Just don't push it aside. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Everything is synchronicity. Um, it's often not minor. So I invite you to give that a try if you're not already living that way. The last question, it's from Anonymous. As the world's systems fall apart, what in your own life is asking to fall away? So that's an excellent question, and I invite everybody uh, to answer that one. That's not just for me. As the world's systems fall apart, what in your own life is asking to fall away? I can only, like, my personal example is there are a few things that came to mind. I meditated on this for a few moments today, and one of the things that has been falling away for a very long time, I've worked on this program, this pattern for a very long time, and I would call it the martyr program. The martyr is a savior who at the same time is also a victim. And so that program is about letting go of anything in one's life that is win-lose. So, rescuing somebody at the expense of our own health or our own well-being, doing way too much and getting drained by that. Um, Doing the program of what we call people pleasing, right? Where we're pleasing others um, out of a sense maybe of some kind of obligation or something, but it doesn't feed us. So it's got to be a win-win. It has to feed and inspire us too. So I speak about that as us, but um, that was one of my bigger programs that I started working on about 15 years ago, I think, when I really took a close notice of it. And I don't really run that anymore. But occasionally I'll catch just like a little thread of it. So I'm always looking for that, any remnant of that, letting go of the martyr program. Um, so I think that includes saying yes to anything that I don't get a huge, big, enthusiastic yes on is not right. I can feel that that's not right for anymore. So I have to get a big yes on something. And if I don't, it's a no. So I'm letting go of anything that would prevent me from living that way. Um, Lastly, there's one last thing I'll share that you asked that what I'm letting go of physically over the last few years. It's taken 2 or 3 years. I've been purging a storage unit that was full of decades of old CoreLight files, paper files, physical audio tapes, videotapes. We've been digitizing everything. I've had a wonderful team. God bless the people who are helping me with this. We've digitized everything, put it all in a database. We're going to be, creating like a library as a resource for students, and we'll be using this database to create new books and courses. So it's really like doing that kind of purge is releasing so much old energy, and it's making space. It's opening things up for a new energy, for something new to begin. So that's been we're at the end of that project. It's been very inspiring and amazing. So I hope that's helpful. And we're going to end right there. So thank you again, everybody, for joining me. Let's end with our final prayer and guided meditation. I invite you now to get comfortable, to sit or lie down, close your eyes, take a few long, slow, deep breaths, and relax with each exhale. Breathing in all the light and the life force that surrounds you. And breathing out any mind stuff that might have been stirred up by our talking today. Breathing in joy. Breathing in peace. Deeply letting go. Great Spirit, we make an offering of everything that we've spoken about today. We're giving back any imbalances, all the imbalances around war consciousness, victim consciousness, the fears, the parts of us that still hold on to any kind of fears, that do any kind of dance with victims, tyrants, and saviors. We ask to be shown more about what that is if we're still playing that out so we can release it and let it go. The first step is in seeing it and naming it, describing it, making it conscious. So we invite that in and we release it. Thank you for the opportunity to gather together today in this field of love and to shine a light on shadow, to transmute it, and to heal, to step in to truth. We call in truth as midwives of this new paradigm of the heart. We invite truth into our lives and into the world. Help us to speak our own truth and to see truth, to be able to discern truth and to live our truth from the heart, to live in love as much as we possibly can. And let's take a moment right now, as we did at the beginning of the call, to open our hearts and just send a little blast of love and peace out to planet Earth, our beautiful Mother Earth, to the whole of the natural world, including humans, especially those who are affected by war, those who suffer for any reason, but especially war. We ask for love, healing, and peace to be sent to those areas. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be in a field of love together today. Thank you for the opportunity to be incarnate as a human on planet Earth at this amazing time, the show of the millennia, the turning of the age. And I call in the power of the divine to guide all of us, to help all of us to be midwives of the new paradigm of the heart within us, to live our own lives in heart-centered states and to share that with the world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alalaho. Alalaho means, isn't it wonderful in Tibetan? It's sort of like Amen. So when you're ready, slowly begin to wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes. Come back into your body, into the room. Thank you, everybody. Thank you once again for joining me. I am deeply grateful to have this time with you, and I wish you happy surfing on your boards. Stay balanced, stay on your boards, happy witnessing, and I look forward to seeing you again in a month. Please always remember, please, I love when you share with me. Please write to me, reach out, let me hear how you are, share your questions with me, and we'll look forward to connecting again soon. All my love to you. Many blessings. Bye for now.